What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a Thursday edition of Back Your Play with Q. As always, I'm your host, Rich Canoes. We're powered by our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. Check out the show notes below. 20% off if you use the promo code BYP20. That'll get you 20% off your first purchase. Also, Play It Again Sports, home of your best bang for your buck when it comes into used sports equipment and more. 1450 Clements Ridge Road in Deptford, New Jersey. And it was a gorgeous day along the East Coast. Weather, we know it's going to break eventually. We're getting into that part of the NFL season. Week 10, pretenders, contenders. Obviously, we jump started tonight, but a pretty much intriguing Thursday night matchup, which we will get into. But as always, we welcome in our good friend of this show and really a part of BYP, our co-host Lloyd Vance, host of Lloyd Vance's Insider Football, SR 1029 FM The Game. You can catch it every Monday, 8 to 9. I mentioned Thursday Night Football, Cincy and Baltimore. But my friend, how are you?
Doing great, Q. It's separation time. We're going to finally start seeing maybe some movement here. There are some very good teams, as we know, Buffalo, Detroit, Kansas City, but there's some really bad ones as well. So there's a lot of teams in that middle that got a lot of sorting out to.
Yeah, and I think for those that do half, team totals, you have to watch how some of this plays out over the next couple of weeks because some of these teams are going to start spitting the bin and tanking. They're going to be maybe turning around, giving younger players an opportunity to play. We might see that, after that horrible Germany game we're going to see on Sunday, Carolina and the Giants. You got the issues with Trevor Lawrence, his future with Jacksonville. You got Daniel Jones is pretty much going to be one more and done with the Giants. The trade deadline has come and gone. And, I thought a lot of teams, they stood pat. I was a little shocked. I was a little surprised by that. Some of the names we thought might move, Bryce Young, Anthony, none of those, Daniel Jones, none of those, Slayton, none of them moved, Ojulari, none of them moved. But it starts tonight. I think it's a marquee matchup, Cincinnati and Baltimore. Baltimore is laying 6.5 at home. Total is one of the highest of the weekend, 52.5. Cincy is plus 225 if you grab them on the money line. I love what Cincinnati's been doing of late. Joe Burrow looks absolutely locked in. This is a huge game right now. AFC North, rivalry teams don't like each other. I think this is going to be a dandy. This is a game where I'll probably sit back, go very light, but I'll sit back and just enjoy it.
Yeah, and it's going to be fun because this is going to start sorting out this division, and we know the Pittsburgh Steelers in front at 6-2, but they still have some question marks on that team. And Cincinnati, they still have a little bit fight left in them. You saw that last week. They put up some big numbers, particularly defensively. You saw Hendrickson getting after people. He now leads the NFL with 11 sacks, and Joe Burrow seemed to get right in that game against the Raiders. So uh, the Ravens are tough at home, though, but then Lamar Jackson's playing at a level Q. He may win his third MVP. Derrick Henry leading the National Football League with over 1,000 yards already, and they're going to try to run that football. And the key, though, is going to be their defensive secondary. I
Yeah.
know they brought over Tre'Davious White in a trade coming from the Rams, trying to shore up that secondary, but Kyle Hamilton and the rest of those guys got to do a better job. Been back and forth on this game, particularly the way the Bengals have played, and sometimes the Ravens have had problems protecting Lamar front. So I think the Ravens win this one, but I don't think they're going to cover that number.
No, I think it's a high number for an AFC North divisional matchup, and I think Henry's going to have some opportunities to run tonight as well. You mentioned Lamar Jackson. Burrow's been coming on as well. Giants and the Panthers pass. Pats and the Bears pass. Look, the Bills and the Colts, somewhat interesting with Buffalo laying 4. I think Indianapolis has a boatload of problems. Joe Flacco is not even the short-term answer. They don't know what they're going to do with Anthony Richardson. But Buffalo quietly, we talk about those top seeds in the AFC. You mentioned Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Kansas City being undefeated. And then there's Buffalo Bills at 7-2. They're laying 4, 47.5. Indies plus 175 on a money line.
Yeah, and Buffalo right now coming off 4 straight wins, and they seem to be hitting that proverbial, button to kind of hit the switch, and they're kind of getting in playoff modes. Right now, they're the second seed behind the Kansas City Chiefs. They don't want to lose any ground there, and the thing is, defensively is where they're really coming along. They get Vaughn back this week, and they're top 10 in multiple categories. So that defense is playing a lot better. Indianapolis, as you said, they thought Joe Flacco could jumpstart this offense because Richardson only had 44 completion rate, but Flacco he was awful last week. And they actually forgot to get the ball to Taylor, who's their engine. So It'll be interesting to see if they try to lean more in that running game and if Flacco can get right. But I expect Buffalo to come in there. Josh Allen's cut down on his turnovers this season. I expect them to come in there and win this game. But you always got to beware of the home dog.
Yeah, always interesting when you got that four number. People look at it as a dead number, 4.5, five, but four, a little more confidence in the quarterback play. That would be a Buffalo and Allen over if it's going to be Flacco, Endor down the road and Richardson. Um, the Broncos and the Chiefs. Look, Kansas City's 8-0. We know it's an AFC West game. Denver's come back down to life a little bit. That's a high number. And we said last week, and we both, I lean towards Tampa Bay playing closer than anticipated and then maybe losing by 10 plus. And that wasn't the case. I'm a little surprised they didn't go for two on the road, but again, it's a story for another day. But Kansas City's laying 8, 41.5. Denver's plus 320 on the money line. This is a game where Kansas City, look, it doesn't have to be sexy, but they're just winging and winning. And now you add Hopkins in the mix. I just don't think Denver has the offensive firepower, especially, to slow them down a little bit. Denver's run defense is better, but I don't, and Kansas City has a real good run defense, averaging about 88 a game. I just don't see from a passing standpoint, Bo Nix, Patrick Mahomes. I'll take my shots with Patrick Mahomes. Just 8 is a lot. Like to me, that's a game where I probably will tease it down with another game. Maybe San Francisco. I don't know.
This is going to be interesting because their calling card, everybody thinks offense, offense, but these two teams are built on their defenses, both top five. And the thing is, though, Kansas City, as you said, they've been winning games, but very close. Last week they won in overtime by 6, and that is a lot of points to cover 8 points in a divisional match. But Bo Nick did not have the best week last week. We'll see if he's able to kind of bounce back, maybe get Devontae Williams running the football and Patrick and the rest of those guys catching it. But I think Kansas City's really starting to hit their stride. You talked about D Hop joining this team, and Travis Kelce is starting to
Yeah.
play at a high level, getting a very good running game out of Kareem Hunt as well. And Patrick Mahomes cut down on his turnovers, not forcing the ball as much, and he's starting to hit his playoff stride, as I was talking about the Ravens earlier. So I expect Kansas City to win this one, but I don't know if they're going to cover that 8, though.
One of the marquee matchups of the weekend, Pittsburgh on the road against Washington, the upstart, my Commanders 7-2, laying 2.5 at home, give them the hook. Pittsburgh 6-2. Again, Russell Wilson, Justin Fields. I just love what Washington's doing. They got one of the best offenses. We haven't said that in about 30 years in the NFL. Total is a tad low, 44.5. Pittsburgh 125, plus 125 on a money line. This is the 1 o'clock CBS window. This should be a 425 game, but I'll take it at 1 on CBS. Most likely Ian Eagle will do the game, or could be a Kevin Harlan game. Man, I got to keep riding my Commanders, man. Jaden Daniels, they can run the football, whether it's with Robinson or not Robinson. Eckler's had a monster year. He gives them hard yards. They have a very good wide receivers. The secondary's pretty stout. I love Washington in this spot, laying 2.5.
The interesting one, too, because you got the Steelers coming in there. They're riding a hot streak as well, and the Steelers have won 3 straight games. You have Washington winning 3 straight games. So someone's got to break here. And when I look at this matchup, though, the only thing is Highsmith and Watt are playing so well on that defensive line for the Steelers,
It's a good
getting a
point.
lot of pressure on a
But
quarterback.
he's
And
elusive. Daniels is elusive. We know that.
Daniels is elusive. Sometimes he runs himself into pressure when he shouldn't, but he's a good young quarterback who uses his legs to get out of trouble. Their offensive line has struggled at points. They're going to need Brian Robinson, who's been a little banged up, try to
Yeah.
get a running game from him to hit those slants to McLaurin. So I've been back and forth in this one. Russell Wilson seems to have really turned his team around. And then Washington, they're still tinkering with that secondary. They just made a trade, bringing Lattimore over, trying to help those guys out. So um, I think the Steelers are going to win this one. It's going to be a fun game to watch. But, that 2.5 is a close number, but I think the Steelers, I'd say take Pittsburgh in a point. So I believe
Well,
in Mike Tomlin and Austin, what he's doing defensively.
Eagles fans will love to hear that. They're on the road against Dallas. No Dak Prescott. Listen, Jalen Hurts quietly over the last several weeks has put up some monster numbers. You got to jettison him in the MVP race. Philly's laying 7 on the road against a rival. You're not going to see Dak. It's going to be some bad football. Trey Lance. It doesn't matter who you're throwing out there. Dallas is such a mess if you think about it. I just the only way they stay in this game is if Nick Sirianni coaches the way he always coaches, right? And I've argued with people left and right, and I've come up with the numbers again. Chasing is different. And then as opposed to when you're ahead, I still don't like some of these calls, but it's like they're winning in spite of him. But Hertz is putting up monster numbers. You know, AJ Brown when he's on the field, Smith when he's on the field. They got a tight end, obviously Saquon Barkley. I, this is a horrible spot for the Dallas Cowboys right now. Like this can get ugly pretty fast.
Right? You have Cooper Rush is going to play in this game, and Dak Prescott. They're talking about he may need surgery on that hamstring. So I think CeeDee Lamb is going to play in this game. He will pressure the Eagles secondary. Yes, Quinnon Mitchell has played real well, and also Cooper DeJean.
Yep.
Everybody's real hyped up about them. But the Eagles front four is not getting as much pressure as they need to be. They only got 2 sacks last week against a very bad Jacksonville line. I think though they will beat Dallas because Dallas is struggling so bad. I think they cover that 7 points because it's looking like the beginning and end of Dallas Cowboys. They're probably going to have to blow that thing up. We know they have no running game. Ezekiel Elliott is not doing much, and their defense is kind of lost without Micah Parsons, and they're not sure if he's going to play in this one. So Eagles continue to get right, and I saw it tweeted earlier today. They love beating a bad team. And
Yes.
the teams they've beaten combined are 18 and 36. So Dallas is a bad team. They're going to pile on these guys and get that win. And then the fun part is next week, next Thursday, they play Washington in that key divisional battle.
Yeah, major, major NFC's implications. The all of a sudden surging Jets 3-6, Arizona 5-4. I think Arizona's starting to get right at the best time. Jets on the road laying two because it's Aaron Rodgers, obviously. Their defense is still has not been able to really shut down anyone. Arizona's offense starting to click a little bit. They're gaining some confidence. They're on a nice little winning streak as well. I believe it's 3 wins in a row. So they're showing signs of life at the right time. They won 4 out of 5, and the only blemish was they got waxed by a very good Green Bay team. But I do like Arizona in this spot. I just think it ends this weekend for Aaron Rodgers and the Jets.
Another game I've been back and forth on too, because yeah, it's now or never for the New York Jets. They have their new coach in there in Olbrich. He's kind of lit a fire underneath them. They're playing a little better now that they have Devontae Adams. Wilson's playing at one of the highest levels of any receiver out there. They still kind of need that running game with Allen, and the offensive line is picked up pretty well. But as you said, Cardinals very physical team. They've won 3 straight games. James Conner is running the football downhill. Uh, Tyler has not had to do much for them, quite frankly. Last week he had a pretty average game for him. They got the big
Right.
lead, and their defense is playing really well with Buda Baker and the rest of those guys. So been back and forth in this one, but I still think the Jets have a little bit of fight left in them, Q. I think the Jets win this one in a squeaker, and we'll see how they go from there. Obviously, they're chasing that 6th or 7th playoff spot, and they're going to have to hit a hot streak in order to get it.
Well, they screwed me on the Thursday night game against the Houston Texans where CJ Stroud regressed and looked poor. I mean, I had Houston on the money line, and my goodness. Speaking of which, Houston at home against probably arguably the most complete team. I still believe one of the best teams, if not the best team in the NFL, in the Detroit Lions, and one of the best coach teams as well. No disrespect to Andy Reid in Kansas City. Detroit on the road against the Texans. Tough spot to play in. 3.5, 48.5 is the total. Houston plus 160 on a money line. This to me has the makings of a 30-24 type of game, but I'm going to keep riding at Detroit, man, and Jared Goff in that offense.
I'd have to go with you because right now the Houston Texans look like Nico Collins is not going to be able to come back from that hamstring injury. That's huge for them. We know they already lost Dig, and Stroud just did not look comfortable, as you said last week, and there was a lot of pressure in terms of the offensive line had a ton of penalties and a ton of pressures they allowed. So the Lions are playing at as well as anybody in the National Football League, and maybe better than the Chiefs at this point. Can beat you a variety of ways. It's going to be another indoor track game for them. Last week they showed they won in the muck out there in Green Bay. I think this week they win indoors in Houston, and they cover that number.
All right, there you have it. Some of the marquee games of the weekend. Week 10 in the NFL starts tonight. Cincinnati and Baltimore. Thursday night football with the Ravens laying 6.5. Total is 52.5. We'll tweet out our picks as we typically do on X. Lloyd Vance, give him a follow at Lloyd Vance. Check him out every Monday, 8 to 9. Lloyd Vance's Insider Football on Sports Radio 1029 FM The Game, part of the Coastal Sports Network, and right here on BYP. Back your play with Q. We are powered by our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. 20% off BYP20. That's the promo code to save with the weather starting to get a little chilly out there. Why not have a nice little cup of Joe? And of course, a beverage of your choice while watching the games on Sunday. But always appreciate a couple moments, my friend. Enjoy the games on Sunday, and we will do it again next week.
All right, Q. Look forward to it.